2021. This year, we saw everything from repercussions left after an economic depression caused by the pandemic to bad decisions that leave me questioning the human mind. Several production companies messed up big time, so buckle up because this will get good. Well, bad. In 2009, Cartoon Network created a block called CN, in which they broadcast programs made with actors to try to compete with more popular channel live-action shows such as Nickelodeon and Disney. Did they manage in serious competition to put out one of the shows that were really worth it? No. In contrary, all Cartoon Network's live actions were super mediocre. Fortunately, they had learned their lesson and simply were not interested in watching live-action programs, a channel dedicated to broadcasting cartoons. Or we thought they had learned their lesson. Because this year, the president of Cartoon Network announced that he wanted to return to producing broadcasting live actions. Starting with one title, Family Mashup, the president explicitly said the first time they tried to broadcast failed because the direction taken by executives at the time had a different vision from the program would work. I'm not sure what you will think, but do you think that he'll actually keep his promise? Blue Sky Studio. On February 9th, 2021, Disney announced that they would close Blue Sky Studio in April of the same year. The company explaining that due to the continuing economic impact due to the pandemic, it was no longer sustainable operation in a third animation studio. Especially considered that the films produced by the other studios generate more income for them, it's worth mentioning that the decision left 450 employers who work for the animation production completely unemployed. Straight pink cards. The saddest thing in the situation that produced the film adaptation of the webcomic Pneumonia, originally scheduled to be released on January 14, 2022, was cancelled as a result of the studio's closure. New year, new cartoons. This segment will review the worst series released this year. The Great North. This show is just plain boring. It's supposed to be comedy, but none of the jokes hit Devil May Care. Everybody compares the show to Ugly Americans because, in essence, they are similar. The downside is the series is not enjoyable at all. The Pole. This is an animated mini-series. You can tell that it's just one of those series that you could use to grab an audience easily. Unfortunately, this time it did not work out too well. Bird Girl. This is a spin-off of the Harvey Birdman series. While the original was a masterpiece, Bird Girl shows us a lead character too weak to keep the show interesting. MODOK. This is a series aimed at a specific audience. I don't even think they like it themselves. Housebroken. It's another adult series that did not hit that well. Teenage Enthusiast. Chicago Party. Fairfax. The Freak Brothers. And Adventure Beast. Although the series is not necessarily for adults. We just reviewed the series released this year, so now let's go over the other pole of the matter. Remember, the multiple series canceled. Hero 6, the series. Bless the Hearts. The Harper House. The Fungies. Arthur, although it was only announced that they would be canceling the series next year. Infinity Train. It was canceled this year, and thousands of fans of the show tried their best to save it. Unfortunately, this year it was confirmed that HBO was not going to continue the program. Lazar Wolf was also a canceled series that caused quite a stir, produced by Adult Swim. This cartoon lasted only 2 years. While the aesthetics of the show were pretty, the voice acting in the series was terrible, coupled with poor timing, and ended up killing the show. Unlike the Infinity Train, people applauded Adult Swim for this one. This year, not one, but 2 SpongeBob Spinach were released. Were they good? No. Let's start with Camp the Series. Basically, the characters for SpongeBob but babies. Preview of the series came out, and people had already hated 3D animation and also just the arc that it was going on. On the other hand, once the complete show is released, it's polished, and to be sincere, it does not look so bad. Although this does not save the show itself necessarily. The lack of originality, the lack of essence, and the complete clinging to controversial teen tropes does not help the show sustain itself, and leads it to failure. The second series was the Patrick Star Show. To cut it short, we all know that the seasons Patrick was used as comic relief, so putting him in the lead role kind of makes the show feel super unbalanced, forced, and not funny at all anymore. It's pretty disappointing. Caillou was canceled. I know I could have given this show a mention within several of the cancellation segments. On the other hand, I feel that the entire act of its cancellation is more important and worthy of its own segment. Caillou debuted first in 2000, focuses adventures on a child and his family. The entire series ran for 20 years until the cancellation on January 2021. The production company announced on Twitter that they would no longer be airing this program, and a series of tweets gave this advice to parents on how to break the news to their children. However, this plan completely backfired as the parents rather applauded their decision to cancel the program. I want want to start by saying that the series based on Winx does not quite fit. One of the problems with this live-action adaptation to cartoons is that they try to make them look like something that they're not. In the case, super edgy and dark. Don't get me wrong, the original Winx series was truly groundbreaking and touched on some pretty dark themes. But at the end of the day, incorporating a plot with angsty feels to the show does not add up and equate to making the plot more meaningful. And it doesn't really appeal to today's teens. Fate, the Winx saga ends in adapting a decent character with plenty of interest and backstory into characters pulled from some mediocre Wattpad story. The characters in the adaptations are not written well, and the producers lack respect towards the original source material. Owl House is a Disney animated series that received too mixed criticism upon the premiere, as several parents rated out the satanic and witchcraft themes. On the other hand, even more episodes released. The series was deeply praised animation fans since the plot was interesting and the aesthetics were very beautiful. The animation is quite fluid and eye-catching. The most striking quality of the show is its positive representation of the LGBTQ community. Unfortunately, and I quote, in October 2021, Owl House creator Dana Terrence posted a statement on Reddit saying that the show canceled not due to low ratings or due to association with COVID-19 pandemic, but because some people in the upper echelons of Disney did not feel the show matches with the brand, which is quite fishy. Several people wasted no time interrupting the real reason why Disney was not producing Owl House, because they were openly including LGBT themes on their show. The Fairly Oddparents in the series that is based off officially declared dead by its fans for decades. It's had total irrelevance and annoying characters, changed the animation, even traced comedy was replaced by cringe. Still, Butch Hartman and Nickelodeon don't want us to let us know the show will die, even with all the pleas to not do anything new with the brand. Anyway, this time they announced that they would make an attempt to resurrect the show through a live action. This will take place where the series ends and will follow Timmy's cousins. Incidentally, Drake Bell will occasionally return in the series as Timmy Turner, which is extremely controversial and of bad taste considering the controversy that took place this year surrounding allegations of for obvious reasons or another mediocre actions of the show and public already deemed live action failure, but only time will tell. In the past 2021, not so highly anticipated program, The High Guardian Space premiered. The original concept for the series came in 2018's out on Crunchyroll, and since then it was received several backlashing posts from a lot of people who had no interest in its original airing. But the producers did not care, still released it. The series came extremely controversial mainly because the people who made it, not only did some of the staff act like social justice warriors, but there were even misandry persons within the cast. The show has questionable animation, completely mediocre scripts, and very poor representation of the trans community. By the way, putting out cartoon on the anime-only streaming platform isn't the best decision they could have made. In order to make this video not longer than it needs to be, I'll mention the events in which I did not find enough information about, or I simply did not get attracted enough to discuss it in further detail, but I'm just going to give it good mentions. But if you have any questions about these or have any sort of opinion, feel free to leave something in the comments. But the honorable mentions today are the future cancellation of Glitch Text, the Powerpuff Girls live action, the fact that Disney removed Dumbo, Peter Pan, and the Aristocrats from the kids' accounts because there are several scenes containing offensive and racial stereotypes. Though as adults can still access these films, it's not like the Dr. Seuss situation where they're completely removed, but that's also due to Disney's anti-LGBTQ and progressive mentalities. Family Guy will no longer broadcast on Adult Swim. Nickelodeon's soon-to-come Monster High will be a live action, and one of the Bob's Burgers voice actors is being fired for his involvement with the attacks in the Capitol this year. The worst of 2021. Smell y'all later. Peace.